There is no life without risk. There is no idea that is 100% great. But the single biggest thing like each of us could do to have greater focus is your network is vital for success. Sometimes we are our own worst enemy.
Faris Aranki, thank you for coming on the show.
Hey Matt, great to be here with you, the viewers, the listeners. I'm looking forward to it.
So you have a formula for success, which is success equals IQ times EQ times FQ. Can you explain each part of the formula?
Oh, of course I can. Yeah, straight into the formula. Love it, right? And, just for context, everybody, I'm a business owner, but used to be a maths teacher, so I love a good formula. High school math is where it's at, right? No, but what does this formula tell us? Basically, if you want to be successful at anything in life, right, first of all, you've got to have a goal. You've got to have an objective. But to get there, you need these three components. IQ, which is the best idea to get there. Okay, it's not Mensa IQ, it's about the quality of your thinking. But then that's not enough, right? You can have a great idea, but if you don't have the second component, EQ, the ability to take others on the journey with you, then you're not going anywhere, right? But those are still not enough. And so we say the third component is called FQ, which sounds rude, but is actually focus quotient. It's the ability to focus on what you say is important. So the great idea, take people on board, and the ability to focus. IQ, EQ, FQ.
Is there any one of those in particular that stands out as something that businesses struggle to implement on a consistent level?
It depends on the kind of business, right? We always talk about it like a tripod. If you've got, or a bar stool, that's got three legs. If one of them's wonky, you're going to fall flat on your face, right? Now, in our experience, so our company comes in and helps with each of those pillars, right? Where we seem to help the most, I'll be honest with you, is the EQ pillar, right? Maybe it's because we work with a lot of very smart people, very technical people, just not able to connect with others, not able, and sometimes that's within their own business, right? They're not able to get their whole team engaged or explain things simply enough or get people excited. So we seem to do our most work in the EQ pillar, followed by the FQ pillar, but we still do a lot of work in the IQ pillar as well.
So for the FQ pillar,
yeah,
what is, I guess, the whole focus part? Is that more of procrastination or just having too many things that cloud your vision?
Yeah, everyone tells me, oh, I'm so glad you talk about FQ for us. I can't stay off my phone. And I'm like, it's not really about that. Obviously, that will help, right? And procrastination is another. But the single biggest thing like each of us could do to have greater focus is prioritize and rationalize, right? We are all doing too many things. Right. And certainly some people are doing too many things at the same time, right? Multitasking is a fallacy, but really it's about strategically, what are the most important things in your life? Have you built, a clear path towards all of them? And so that's where we help with FQ the most. Obviously, we do also have some tips around phones and distraction and blah, blah, but that's the main thing, prioritization and rationalization.
So what are your thoughts on different competitive advantages? Because even I think a significant one these days is limiting distractions, the phone, social media, and all of that.
Yeah. I mean, that definitely stands out, right? You immediately go dumb when you get your phone out, all right? It may be a smartphone, but it makes you dumb. What do I mean by that? Recently, I stumbled across an amazing story, and this is how my brain works. I read a great story about something that happened. I go, whoa, is that true? I'm going to try it in my life or with the groups that I work. So the story I read, if you'll humor me, Matt, was about a French restaurant where the owner, it was Valentine's Day, and he came out and all the couples in his restaurant, the majority of the couples were all on their phones, not talking to each other. They were either taking photos of the food, they were texting people, messaging, and he was like, it's Paris, it's the center of love. You should all be talking and enjoying it. So he threw a fit and he said, right, no more phones in my restaurant. And the French media loved it. They were like, there's this crazy cook who says no one's allowed to use their phone in his restaurant. So if you came to his restaurant, you had to hand your phone in when you walked in, right? And do you know what he discovered? Like a month later, he made 30% more profit and he got higher ratings from all the customers, which sounds bonkers, like, because, people were saying things like, it's the first time I've enjoyed my meal. I really, spent time absorbing it. I enjoyed the company. People would stay for longer and order more food. That's how he was getting more money, right? So I read this and I was like, wow, that's such an impact, banning phones. I'm going to try it with the teams that I work with, right? So I get people nowadays to hand in their phone when we start a meeting or start a workshop. Do you know what? People are nervous at first, but they always say in the feedback afterwards, that was actually really good. You allowed me to resist the sort of the petty day job or the distraction. Now, I'm not saying that people, if in case of emergency, you might need your phone, but hey, if you can block out and stop your smartphone making you dumb, you'll instantly be in a better place.
And even with not having your phone at all, on a lesser scale, just deleting social media is something I've done the last month or
Mm.
so. It is insane the amount of more time I just have, mental clarity, not being so distracted. It's crazy how easy it is to let that kind of seep its way into your life and just have a really get a hold of you.
Yeah, we don't realize just how much of an addiction it is, right? And willpower it only takes you so far. So you're absolutely right. I always tell people don't operate in the margins. Delete the distraction. Delete the thing. Just get rid of it entirely. Is better than having what I call a half decision, which is I'll only use social media at this time, or because it just starts to bleed in because we don't really have 100% willpower.
So talk to me about leaving the corporate world and starting your own business.
Yeah, God, that was super scary. So that was 5 years ago. Well, it was a little over 5 years ago when I made the decision and made the announcement. So for context, I was a partner in a consulting firm. So big title, big salary, big status, and but I wasn't happy. Right, I was working with my own career coach. Realized I wasn't enjoying the job anymore, and I'd sort of changed to fill the job rather than letting the job change to satisfy me. So once I clocked that, it still took me a while to work out what I should do. How could I get the joy back into my life? And but I put those components together and I made the leap. And everyone thought I was bonkers. Right? They thought I was crazy. Why would you do this? So it's funny the sort of reaction from people around me. I'd say the majority were like, "That's crazy," but you know what? Some people were like, "Go for it," right? And it's real. What I noticed was a polarization around people, depending on people's personal view around risk. If they were risk averse, they thought I was crazy. If they were a risk taker, they thought, go for it. Excellent. So yeah, I made the leap. People thought I was crazy. It's a hell of a roller coaster. It's like night and day being a corporate employee to being an entrepreneur. But do you know what? It really works for me. And if it works for you, I'm massive supporter of anyone who does it.
So what would you say to someone who wants to start a business and is just that fear just has such a hold on them that they're really paralyzed in a way that they can't force themselves to take any action. They're just stuck in their bubble.
I mean, fear's a good thing, right? Human beings have fear for a reason. It's a safety mechanism, right? And like I said, it's not for everyone. So your fear may be the right instinct, and it might not be for you because it's not your personality type. It might not be for you because of your circumstances. I've got a good buddy who saw me doing something successfully, and he said, "Look, I'm gonna do you." And I said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, hang on a minute. You've got 4 kids. You've got a big mortgage. Can you take on this risk?" Right? Because look, I was honest with him. My first year, I made no money because of COVID. Right? So there's quite a there's a margin of error. But if your fear is coming more from a place of self doubt, address each of the things in your head. I talk about blowing away the narrative in your own head. Sometimes we are our own worst enemy, Matt. Right? We tell ourselves a story. Look, I couldn't possibly go and ask my boss for a pay raise. I couldn't possibly go and talk to that stranger in a bar. I couldn't possibly. These are all just stories in our head, right? And if your fear is coming from a story in a head, change the story, address the story, right? So, yeah, fear might be for the right reason, but if it's there for the wrong reason, tackle it head on. Find examples where it's been wrong in the past, change the narrative. Amazing things will happen.
Many times it's fear of others' opinions or what if I fail and all these things that just they don't just dissipate. They continue to mount and build in your mind and it just gets worse and worse and worse if it's not addressed.
Yeah, completely. Have you ever heard of a tool called a premortem, Matt?
I have not.
Oh, you're in for a treat. I love premortems. I do them all the time, both for my life and for others. What a premortem does is take an idea or take anything. You maybe have designed a new product. You've got an idea. You think, oh, maybe I should start my own business. Literally take your idea, put it on a wall, and find every reason why something might go wrong with your idea. Literally, you're giving your team permission to say, this is a terrible idea. Give me all the reasons why it's a terrible idea, why it's going to fail. And the whole point of this is to punch yourself out. Get all those fears on the wall. Get them all out. All right? They're probably you don't have as many as you think. They're probably not as scary as you think. But once you can see them all, Then you can go through them rationally and say, okay, which of these am I most worried about? Right, let's pick the top three. How could I possibly turn it around so I'm no longer afraid of that? What do I have to do today? So I do this with teams. It's a way of testing strategies. It's a way of playing to their, if you've got negative or doubters in the team, right? Because it's really allowing them to have a platform, and it's for you to anticipate where things might go and fix it, prefix it, right? It takes the fear away. So if you do have fear, use a premortem.
Interesting. Yeah, I've not heard of that. What has the results of that been? Is that more of a trying to find where problems could be to address them, or just seeing how what all the different possible routes of starting that business, starting that new section in your whatever that looks like? What is the overall goal of it?
The overall goal is, yes, to give you more confidence, but it is about that kind of risk mitigation, right? It's a play on get all your risks out, which is what a good project manager or program manager will do. Get them out in a fun and engaging way, and then start addressing them, right? Because there is no life without risk. There is no idea that is 100% great, right? So it shouldn't stop us from launching ideas. I always talk to teams and companies about have a playbook, a bit like in the NFL, right? They can't think of everything that's going to go wrong, but they can have a plan. If your opponents do this, this is how you counteract. It's far better to have thought about that in advance than in the heat of the battle or under stress, right? So all these great coaching plays, all these great things, they're just a pre-mortem coming to life. We've already thought about this. We're now just going to deploy the countermeasure. Gives you so much more confidence, takes away that fear, and makes a better product, better idea.
Yeah. So going back to competitive advantages,
Yeah.
what is a way you would recommend to identify different competitive advantages either people or just businesses in general have to lean into them?
Yeah. I think let's go through the pillars, right? In the IQ pillar, your ability, I think a competitive advantage is your ability to generate ideas, right? The best strategies in the world are pulled from hundreds of ideas, right? Too many times I walk into a company, their strategy is built on the first idea they came up with. And I'm like, whoa, that's a big risk, right? Because what if that's the wrong idea? And usually their idea is the idea they've always had. People just repeat ideas that they've had. The best strategies are come up with 100 ideas, pick the best one. So that's a competitive advantage. If you are much more creative, and that doesn't mean you as an individual, anytime I work with teams, let's say there's 15 people in the team, in the space of 3 minutes, I will be able to get those 15 people to come up with 50 unique ideas. Guaranteed, right? So it's the power of the team. It's the power of how you think and how you approach a challenge. So that's in the IQ pillar, differentiator. In the EQ pillar, differentiator is your ability to flex your style. Okay. And that's on an individual but a team basis. The most successful people in life and the most successful companies are the ones who can adapt their style without even, the other person realizing. And what I mean about that is how you communicate, how you engage with people. There are different styles and no one style will work with everybody. So you need to be flexible as a differentiator. And then pillar 3, the focus, we've already talked about it. People who are ruthlessly focused. I met recently a 23-year-old lady who's become the youngest woman in the world to conquer all of the 14 highest mountains in the world. Do you know how she did that? She made the commitment to herself aged 13, this is what I'm going to do. And therefore, dropped out, stopped her education, cut back on her social life. She had ruthless focus because she had this goal in mind, right? So people who have that ruthless focus, that's an amazing differentiator.
And what role does authenticity play in maybe the EQ part of the formula and just
Yeah.
business, whether it's business, content creation, just in general?
Oh, it's a big component, right? We love authentic people. We love because authenticity, it makes you able to connect quicker, but it also releases you from having to play a role that you're not. So yeah, the more authentic, but it's not the only pillar. In the EQ bucket, we talk about trust, and trust is built on authenticity, credibility, and reliability. So you've got to be authentic, you've got to be credible and expert at what you do, and you've got to be consistent with that reliability. You do what you say you will do time and time again.
And what would you say to someone who is stuck in that meaningless job? Maybe they don't want to start a business, but like you, they realize this isn't their passion and they're becoming nihilistic. they're
Yeah.
saying life is pointless. They're stuck. There's nothing they can do. They are just in that space where their job is just draining them every hour of the day. And then when they're not working, all they can think about is the time they have left before they go back into the miserable job. What would you say
Yeah.
to them?
Well, look, I always say if it's super miserable, get out of there, right? Yeah, you know, it's the old Steve Jobs trick, which I use for myself. I remember once watching an interview with him where he scored his day every day out of 10, right? And he said it's absolutely fine to have a day where you get a 2 or a 3. It's when you get a whole week of 2s or a whole month of 2s, that's when you know you need to change things up. And I do the same with me and my team. Every Friday afternoon, we say, how much fun have we had this week? Right? A scale of 1 to 10. And obviously I get worried if we have a 4, but if it's a run of 4s, then I'm like super worried. We need to change something up. So yeah, if it's super bad, you might want to, but if it's not, if it's bad, but it's not life threatening bad, and then address the EQ pillar first, right? Check in with a friend, share your experience with a buddy, get some emotional support. Because the worst thing to do is make a decision when you're in a bad mood or in a depressed state, right? So you need to get yourself back up to feeling 7 out of 10, even if the day job is terrible, right? So get some support, plug into your friends, share how you're feeling, process it. Then you switch to the IQ pillar. It's amazing how many dead end jobs are not as dead end as you think they are. Literally, I was talking to a young lady this morning, one of my mentees, and she was telling me, I think I've run out of road in my job. I'm bored. I'm not enjoying it. And I said, okay, let's do that idea thing. Give me 10 reasons you should stay or 10 things you could do based in the company you're at. And she started to say, well, I could go and work with this department, which I've never worked with before. I could go and do this. I said, right, there you go. You've got 10 things that you hadn't thought of before. Because when she was in a negative frame of mind, it's that old lack of creativity. She only came up with one option, which was, I need to leave. Right? So address your EQ pillar, get into IQ, get really creative. I guarantee you there will be things you can do. And even if they're not there, create them, right? You could turn around in your company and say, do you know what? I want to now help with university campus recruitment, right? Nobody's looking after that. Suddenly create something you're passionate about in that company that makes the boring bit, less relevant, right? And if you do a really good job in that new thing you've created, you might get to do that full time. You might have carved out yourself a whole role. So that's what I'd say. If you're in that place, measure how bad it is. If it's really bad, get out. If not, get yourself back up in an emotional state and then get creative.
How important is networking, and what advice would you give to someone starting out trying to build a network?
Oh, buddy, you talked to one of my top sort of areas. I love networking, right? I network just in non-stop. And for me, it's a key part of my business, my life. Now, I appreciate not everyone goes as far as I do, right? For context, I probably do 5 to 6 networking events a week. But what I do say is your network is vital for success. If I look back at I built a whole business out of my network. Many of all my clients are people I've previously met. In the past, I got jobs through my network. I've only ever applied for one job, formally through a CV, through a recruitment website. All the others were through my network, a casual conversation here. Oh, we'd love you to come on board. And just the support you get. So it's a gift that keeps on giving. And I remember I was giving a talk at a business school here in the UK to a bunch of 24-year-olds, 25 grad students. And one of them said to me, hey, I love what you're doing. Maybe I should start a business instead of getting a career in consulting. And I said, well, the only way I could start a business is because I had a 20-year network. So if you can bypass that somehow at the age of 24, then go for it. Because as smart as you are, as hardworking as you are, it's hard unless you have a bit of a network around you to make things happen.
And with that, what role has a mentor had in your career?
I mean, mentors are amazing things, right? I've had a range of mentors over the years who've given me advice, and sometimes I didn't realize they were a mentor. They've given me a little bit of advice, a little bit of steer. Sometimes they've told me off. They've stepped in when I've sort of overshot my confidence. And it's those little hands on the back, little nudges that sometimes you acknowledge, sometimes you don't. But it's only in the rear view mirror that you go, I'm really grateful to that person, right? And also they set an example and an inspiration. So I think it's absolutely something everyone should look for, both formal and informal mentors. Feel free, have more than one at a time, right? But choose them wisely and engage with them. A mentor from afar is not actually a mentor. They're just an inspiration. Start talking to people and you'll be amazed. They want to help as well, right? It really rewards me today when people reach back out and say, "Can you help me with this challenge I've got?" And I might not have seen them in 5 years.
That mentor versus just being an inspiration for someone. That's definitely an interesting perspective in all of that.
Yeah, 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 yeah. You need to actually talk to some people at some point.
So, why would you say it's important for business owners to get coaching or just a consultant? Why is that so important?
Look, everyone should get some coaching at some point in their life, right? There's an old saying, I kind of adapt it. I'm Middle Eastern, and I always say that, hummus can't read its own label, right? Or a beer bottle can't read its own label. Right, like right now, it's going to be very hard for me to read a label. So it's nice to have a coach who can read it for you and tell you what it says. That's what a coach does. They hold you back up to yourself because sometimes you can't see it. Uh, and I've used coaches very much for the last 6 years to help me reframe stuff, challenge me, even though this is what I do for other people. And the irony is not lost on me, but I couldn't do it to myself, not in the way that a independent third party could. So if you haven't tried a coach, and you probably have, your buddy down the pub might be doing a bit of coaching for you when you tell them, "Oh, I hate my job," But get a professional coach, you will see the difference, whatever challenge you're facing in life.
And with that, Ferris, where can the listeners find you at?
Hey, I love talking to people. I love networking. So there's two main places. Come and find me at my company website, which is the company's called Shiageto. There's a pillow behind me if anyone's watching this. Shiageto is the Japanese word for a sharpening stone, and the website is www.shiageto.com. And I'm sure we'll put that in the notes. The other place is come find me on LinkedIn. I spend probably too much, disproportionate amount of time there, but I do reply to absolutely every single message. I post every day some tips and tricks, and I just love carrying on the conversation.
Awesome. Ferris, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you very much, Matt.